The air hung thick and heavy, tasting of dust and decay. Not the decay of rotting things, but the decay of something far more fundamental. I, Professor Alistair Humphrey, explorer extraordinaire and cartographer of the unknown, found myself hopelessly lost. Not geographically lost, though the swirling magenta skies and crumbling obsidian spires certainly weren't on any map I'd ever seen. I was lost in a time, a place, a asterisk reality where magic was dying. It had started innocently enough. I'd been chasing rumors of a lost civilization in the remote Himalayas, a civilization said to possess artifacts of immense power. Curiosity, that infernal siren, had lured me through. Now weeks, or perhaps months, time seemed to flow differently here. Later, I regretted my hubris. I'd landed in Erthos, a land once vibrant with sorcery, now teetering on the brink of magical extinction. The air crackled with the faintest echo of what it once was, a melancholic song of lost power. The landscape was a haunting masterpiece of ruined grandeur. Towering cities, built from obsidian and shimmering quartz, lay in desolate disrepair. The few inhabitants I'd encountered, gaunt, hollow-eyed figures, whispered of a creeping blight, a nullification that was slowly draining Erthos of its magical essence. They spoke of a villain, a sorcerer named Malcor, who was not only responsible for the blight, but seemed to be thriving on it. My first encounter with Malcor's influence was brutal. I'd stumbled upon a small village, its inhabitants huddled together in fear. A creature, a grotesque parody of a griffin, lay slumped in the village square, its vibrant plumage faded to a dull gray, its eyes vacant. Now it was a husk, a living testament to his destructive power. It was in this village I met Alara. She was young, barely more than a girl, but her eyes held a fierce determination that belied her age. Alara was a weaver, one of the few remaining individuals capable of manipulating the dwindling magical energies of Erthos. She possessed a spark, a faint but unwavering flame of hope in this dying world. Malcor seeks to claim the Heartstone, Alara explained, her voice barely above a whisper. It is the source of all magic in Arthos. All magic will be extinguished. The Heartstone, she said, was hidden within the Citadel of Shadows, a fortress perched atop the highest peak in Erthos, a place shrouded in perpetual twilight. It was a suicide mission, but Alara was determined to stop Malcor, and against my better judgment, I found myself drawn into her cause. Our journey to the Citadel was fraught with peril. We traversed treacherous landscapes, evaded Malcor's patrols of corrupted creatures, and battled against the creeping nullification that threatened to consume everything in its path. One evening, huddled around a meager fire in a ruined temple, Alara showed me her most prized possession, a small, intricately carved wooden box. My grandmother entrusted this to me, she said, her fingers tracing the box's delicate carvings. She said it contains a counterspell, a way to weaken Malcor's hold on the Heartstone, but the spell is incomplete. It requires a catalyst, something of immense magical power that is resistant to the nullification. I thought of my own world, of the artifacts I had studied and collected. I might have something, I said. Reaching into my worn leather satchel, I pulled out a small obsidian amulet. This was given to me by a shaman in the Amazon. He claimed it was imbued with the spirit of an ancient tree, a tree that predates civilization itself. Alara examined the amulet, her eyes widening. This might work, she said, but as she began to weave her magic around the amulet, a wave of nullification washed over us, snuffing out the fire and plunging us into darkness. We were ambushed. We fought bravely, but we were outnumbered. I managed to fend off a hulking brute with my trusty explorer's axe, but Alara was cornered by a shadowy figure wielding a wicked-looking scythe. I yelled in protest as I moved to help, but it was to no avail. The figure swung the scythe, and Alara cried out. I thought she had been struck, but the blade had instead cut through her wooden box, splintering it into pieces. The counterspell was lost, or so I thought. The shadowy figure then grabbed Alara and vanished into the dark. The weight of despair threatened to crush me, but I knew I couldn't give up. Alara was counting on me. I tracked Malcor's forces to the base of the Citadel of Shadows. The fortress loomed above me, a monolithic testament to his power. I knew I couldn't storm the Citadel alone, so I formulated a plan. Using my knowledge of ancient architecture, I located a hidden passage that led into the Citadel's underbelly. The passage was dark and treacherous, filled with traps and guardians, but I persevered, driven by the memory of Alara's unwavering spirit. It was a vast, cavernous space, bathed in an eerie purple light. The Heartstone itself was a massive crystal, pulsating with raw magical energy. Malcor stood before it, his arms outstretched, siphoning its power into himself. He was surrounded by his loyal followers, their faces contorted in grotesque adoration. Alara was chained nearby, her face pale and drawn. "You're too late, Professor," Malcor sneered, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The nullification is almost complete. Erthos will soon be mine." I charged towards Malcor, but his followers intercepted me. A fierce battle ensued. I fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal, but I was no match for their combined power. Just as I was about to be overwhelmed, Alara used the broken pieces of her box. I initially did not realize what was happening, but as I watched, she reached out and pulled all the pieces towards her, and the box began to reform, as if made of liquid. It then encaged her, and began to glow in intense light. The light emanating from Alara had pushed back the shadowy figures that held me down. "Professor, take the amulet and give me your magic. It is the only way." Desperate, I did what she asked. I placed the obsidian amulet in Alara's hand, and she, still glowing, touched me. I felt a surge of magical energy flow from me into her, a sensation both exhilarating and terrifying. She then spoke again. "The nullification can only be stopped by sacrificing an equal amount of magic. My ancestors gave up everything to craft the box, which contains the counterspell. Now I must do the same." As the light dissipated, the box shattered, and a blast of pure magic energy surged outwards, striking Malcor. The Heartstone pulsed with renewed vigor, its light banishing the shadows that had plagued Erthos. Malcor, weakened but not defeated, turned to me, his eyes burning with hatred. "You haven't won, Professor," he spat. "I will return, Erthos will fall." With a final surge of power, Malcor vanished, leaving behind only the echoes of his threat. Alara collapsed to the ground, exhausted but alive. The Heartstone chamber began to crumble, the Citadel of Shadows no longer able to sustain itself. I carried Alara out of the Citadel as the structure imploded behind us. The nullification was receding, the land slowly healing. But Erthos was forever changed. The age of magic was coming to an end, and a new era was dawning, an era where knowledge and innovation would replace sorcery. As for me, I found the portal that had brought me to Erthos, now shimmering with renewed energy. It was time to return home. But I would never forget my time in Erthos, the dying world where I had found courage, friendship, and a profound respect for the power of magic and the resilience of the human spirit.